Why does rest feel so wrong lately? You don't know when it started. Only that silence makes your skin itch now, like you're missing something, forgetting something, failing something. You sit down to rest, but it doesn't feel like peace. It feels like waiting to be punished, like the world will notice you've stopped. And that means you're losing. To someone, somewhere, at something you were never allowed to name. You check the time again, not because you're late, but because stillness feels dangerous. And the worst part is, you can't tell if you want to rest, or if you're just too ashamed to admit you need to. What if you've spent your whole life trying to outrun a guilt that was never even yours? You say you just want one quiet weekend. No emails, no plans, no pushing. But then Saturday shows up, and suddenly it's like your nervous system doesn't know what to do. You walk from room to room. You scroll, check the clock, open a tab, close it. You think of doing something relaxing, and then feel bad for not choosing something useful. You tell yourself you're allowed to rest, but your body doesn't believe you. And here's the part you can't explain to anyone. The guilt doesn't scream. It hums, low, constant, like background radiation in your brain. You don't even notice it at first, until every small decision feels like a test. Should I get up earlier? Should I be reading right now? Should I have answered that message? Should I feel this tired? It's not pressure from outside, it's from inside. This invisible measuring stick you keep using on yourself without even realizing you're doing it. You don't remember building it, but you remember being small and feeling like being still meant being behind. You remember the gold stars, the praise when you were so mature, so focused. You learned early that being tired meant you were trying. And trying meant you were good. So stopping meant something else. You didn't grow up thinking rest was dangerous. You grew up thinking it was a luxury, something you had to earn, something that might slip away if you weren't careful. So now when you try to rest, you keep waiting for someone to tap you on the shoulder and tell you you've wasted too much already, that you're falling behind, that you could have done more, that this was your chance and you didn't take it. Even when no one says it, your mind fills the silence for them. It's not even a voice, it's a sensation. That dull panic that maybe today was another missed opportunity, another almost, another memory you won't be proud of later. So you open your laptop, you tidy something, you write a to-do list just to prove the day wasn't wasted. And it works. For a second, until the guilt loops back around because now you're doing too much again. You're tired, you're scattered, you're numb, but stopping feels worse. You tell yourself you're just being responsible. You tell yourself, I'll rest later. But later doesn't come. It never comes. Because every time you try, the guilt sits down beside you and asks if this was really the best use of your time. And you never have a good answer. You try to manage it. Schedule rest into your calendar. Set screen time limits. Reward yourself with breaks. But somehow even rest becomes another performance. You journal to feel productive. You meditate with a timer on. You relax while half listening for the next notification. And when you finally do nothing, really nothing, your brain doesn't say, thank you. It says, are you sure this is okay? Are you sure this is allowed? It's like you've wired stillness to shame. Not because you're weak, but because it's the only way you knew how to survive the pressure. So you push through, even when you don't have to. Even when no one's watching. Even when your body is screaming and your mind is barely holding shape. Because you've trained yourself to believe that stopping makes you lose something. Momentum, identity, control. And deep down, you're afraid you don't know who you are without it. You've tried to rest, but every attempt feels like a negotiation. You don't rest, you bargain with yourself. I'll rest after this. I'll stop when it's done. I'll sleep when I feel proud of myself. But here's the part that still stings. You never feel proud long enough, just long enough to postpone the guilt. Never long enough to feel free from it. Even joy gets filtered. You watch yourself having fun, and halfway through a laugh, you hear it again. Was this the right choice? Will you regret this later? You didn't build this loop on purpose, but you live in it now. And it's exhausting in a way you don't even know how to describe anymore. You wake up tired. You rest and still feel tired. You work and feel numb. You stop and feel wrong. Some people burn out in a blaze. You just leak, day by day. choice by choice. Tiny drains you barely notice until one day you wonder why nothing feels good anymore. You don't cry, you don't scream, you just quietly erase parts of yourself. Guilt made you believe that stopping was selfish, that ease was laziness, that softness meant surrender. You try to remember the last time you did something slowly without justifying it, without earning it, without guilt. And the truth is, you can't. You don't remember the last time you sat still and your brain didn't try to escape, didn't whisper consequences, didn't scan the horizon for some hidden deadline you'd missed. It's not that you can't rest, it's that rest doesn't feel safe. Not yet. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part is how long you've been faking peace, how you've smiled through weekends that made your stomach twist, how you've called it just decompressing when really you were rehearsing guilt in your head, looping every undone thing until even sitting still felt like lying. You don't talk about it because it sounds ridiculous, because even now, some part of you still believes you should feel bad. That guilt is the price of ambition. That shame is just the fine print on discipline. And you paid it. Over and over, with your attention, your energy, your joy, until your life became a list of things you finished but never really felt. And this is where something quietly broke. Not with a meltdown, not with a collapse, just a fading. You stopped celebrating, you stopped noticing the good, you started finishing things just to make the guilt stop nagging. It's not that you lost motivation, it's that every choice started to feel like regret waiting to happen. So you chose less, you stopped trying new things. You avoided invitations, not because you were tired, but because you didn't want to deal with that question in your chest. Will I hate myself for this later? And slowly, you vanished from your own calendar. Busy, but not present. Active, but not alive. And the most painful part? No one noticed. Because from the outside, you're still productive, still responsible, still on top of things. But inside, you don't even trust your rest anymore. You second-guess your ease. You brace yourself after every break. You count the hours like someone's keeping score. What if they are? What if you are? What do you do when your own mind won't let you be still? What do you do when you start to resent the parts of you that want rest? What happens when silence doesn't soothe you? It accuses you. You don't fall apart. You just tighten. You just grip harder. You just keep going. Not because you're fine, but because you don't know what else you'd feel if you stopped. Here's the contradiction that cracked you. You need rest to heal. But the moment you begin, the shame makes you stop. So now everything feels like too much and not enough. Every task drains you. Every pause guilts you. And somewhere between those two pressures, you forgot how to just exist. Right here is where you got used to disappearing. You became the person who's always a little tired, always catching up, always fine. Because it's safer to pretend exhaustion is normal than to admit you don't know how to feel safe in stillness. You don't say this out loud, but you know it in your body. In the way your chest tightens on Sunday nights. In the way your mind races the second you close your eyes. In the way even joy feels conditional. Like it has to be earned. Like you're not allowed to just have it without proving something first. And underneath it all, there's a fear you haven't named yet. That if you stop long enough, something deeper might surface. Something you've spent years burying under checklists and fake deadlines and just one more thing. What if it's not laziness you're running from, but grief? Grief for the years you spent believing rest was weakness. Grief for the self you abandoned every time you chose guilt over gentleness. What if your strength was just you holding in the scream for too long? And what happens if you let go? Maybe you didn't mean to disappear. Maybe you just stopped being seen in the stillness because no one ever told you it was okay to be here and not do, to exist and let that be enough. It's strange how long you can survive without permission, how long you can chase a version of worth that only loves you when you're tired. You kept calling it ambition, but it was grief, wasn't it? For all the days you were exhausted and still afraid to rest, for all the quiet hours that didn't feel like peace, just pressure without sound. What if that wasn't weakness? What if that was just the cost of pretending you didn't need softness? And what if, just for a moment, you stopped running and nothing collapsed? Would you know how to stay in that stillness? Would you even recognize yourself without the guilt? It's okay if you don't have answers. It's okay if today you just pause. You don't owe recovery. You just deserve rest.